Hello and welcome to the September issue of the Dot Report. This month, we'll start with a massive phishing operation that spun up more than 17,000 domains targeting over 300 different brands worldwide. Then, we'll look at the arrest of 2 hackers linked to the notorious Scattered Spider group, followed by a deep dive into how the TA-558 threat group is using AI-generated scripts to supercharge their phishing campaigns, before finally jumping into an examination of the ShadowLeak zero-click flaw leaking Gmail data to finish up this month. And for even more cybersecurity news, check out the Dot Report podcast on Spotify or wherever you like to listen. Now, let's jump right in. Once again, exploding in popularity among cybercriminals is phishing. A recent report from Netcraft shows that 17,500 phishing domains tied to service kits called Lighthouse and Lucid are targeting 316 brands spread over 74 countries. These aren't hack your neighbor phishing campaigns. We're talking mass scale, widely impersonating banks, postal services, government agencies, and many more. These phishing as a service offerings work sort of like subscription services, but for cybercriminals. For a fee, you get ready-made phishing templates, hosting, domain infrastructure, and even victim dashboards. Lucid and Lighthouse give you the tools that span industries and geographies to put on your phishing. Lucid, for instance, lets attackers send smishing via iMessage or RCS, while Lighthouse offers monthly and annual plans ranging from $88 a week up to over $1,500 a year for more features. But what's especially tricky is how these kits use targeting tricks to evade detection. They filter by mobile user agent, proxy country, or even serve different content entirely depending on who's viewing. So if you're not the intended target, you might just see a generic fake storefront instead of the malicious page. This gives defenders fewer signals to work with because many phishing domains stay under the radar or appear benign until someone important stumbles upon them. This surge has real impact though. Netcraft observed email-based credential harvesting jumped by about 25% in just 1 month. That's not just more volume, it's more sophistication, more templates, more brand impersonation. Attackers are buying at scale and lowering the technical barrier. For anyone responsible for security, that means companies, cyber teams, or even individuals, the takeaway is that you can't assume your domain or your brand is too small or niche to be impersonated. When these kits support 300 plus brands, pretty much anyone is able to be a target. So defenses need to include domain monitoring, phishing template detection, alerting on brand impersonation, and fast takedown processes. Because once a phishing domain has gone live, even if just for a few hours, real lives can be impacted. Credentials stolen, accounts breached, and trust lost. As law enforcement bodies continue to crack down on cybercrime, UK officials have arrested 2 members of the hacking group Scattered Spider. 2 teenagers were arrested earlier this month in connection to a cyber attack on Transport for London back in August of 2024. This is a complicated case that crosses jurisdictions, as one of the culprits is facing charges in the US tied to at least 120 network intrusions and extortion attempts that targeted 47 separate entities. The alleged ransom and damages totaled at least $115 million, leading UK prosecutors to file charges under the Computer Misuse Act, while US prosecutors are going after wire fraud, computer fraud, and money laundering conspiracies. What's especially striking is how this case reveals the evolution of cybercrime groups like Scattered Spider. They're not anonymous teenage trolls acting solo in a basement. The sophistication of their infrastructure, the money trail, the global reach, and the willingness to attack both private and public infrastructure all point to well-organized criminal enterprises that operate in a similar fashion to organized crime. In the Transport for London incident, key customer data was exposed, including names, contact info, banking details associated with Oyster cards, and more. And multiple services in London were disrupted as well, including travel card services, live travel updates, and some accessibility services. So while the core transport operations weren't brought to a halt, the disruption was enough to cause serious inconvenience and financial costs. There's also a financial forensic side of this that caught investigators' attention. The seizure of cryptocurrency wallets tied to one of the threat actors, some with a value peak of $36 million, and the movement of those funds, like transfers to wallets linked to gift card purchases or food delivery to affiliate addresses. This kind of traceability is what matters and is often what leads to the arrests of a suspect. Zooming out a bit, There are a variety of lessons to pull from this case. First, social engineering still works better than brute force. Second, cross-border cooperation between law enforcement is essential. And third, monitoring crypto flow is becoming critical to tracking modern cybercrime. Finally, age is no barrier for threat actors. In the hospitality sector, the notorious threat actor group TA558, also known as Revenge Hotels, has been deploying a remote access Trojan by the name VenomRat, using AI-generated scripts to breach hotels in Brazil and other Spanish-speaking markets. This marks a significant shift in their tactics as they move from traditional phishing methods rooted in social engineering to sophisticated AI-powered threats. According to Kaspersky, the attackers are sending phishing emails with invoice themes written in Portuguese and Spanish to lure recipients into clicking on malicious links. These links lead to JavaScript payloads that appear to be generated by large language models, evidenced by their heavily commented code and formatting typical of AI-generated scripts. Once executed, these scripts initiate a PowerShell downloader that retrieves additional payloads. In turn, this allows attackers to siphon data, act as a reverse proxy, and features anti-kill protection mechanisms to ensure persistence on compromised systems. This development once again underscores the concerning trend of AI-powered cyber attacks being used in the wild. And speaking of AI, artificial intelligence continues to reshape the cybersecurity industry as researchers at Radware discovered a zero-click flaw in ChatGPT's deep research agent, now dubbed ShadowLeak, that's able to exfiltrate Gmail data without the user ever taking action. This isn't a typical phishing or malicious attachment. The attack happens entirely in the cloud, truly bypassing any sort of local defense. Essentially, attackers embed invisible commands in the HTML of emails which instruct custom malicious AI agents to access the inbox, parse sensitive messages, and transmit the content to an external server. Because the execution happens within OpenAI's infrastructure, though, no endpoint or network monitoring is going to be able to catch it. So in practical terms, this means confidential emails, attachments, and even authentication codes could be siphoned silently without alerting the user or an enterprise IT team. While OpenAI released a patch in early August, the ShadowLeak incident illustrates how AI agents with autonomous capabilities are drastically shifting the attack surface. Companies integrating AI into their workflows need to think beyond classic endpoint security, especially because threat actors are already exploring ways to weaponize AI's access privileges. So for enterprise defenders, ShadowLeak is a wake-up call that AI-powered systems, if security is left unchecked, can introduce entirely new worlds of risk that organizations must anticipate today. That's it for this month, so thanks for watching. As always, I'm Andrew Mancini with Dot Security, and this has been the Dot Report. And remember, if you want even more cybersecurity news from the Dot Report, listen to the extended version on Spotify or wherever it is you get your podcasts. Browse safe out there, and we'll see you next month.